As the sun begins its descent beyond the distant hills, casting long shadows across the castle courtyard, the changing of the guard commences with practiced precision. This is not merely a transfer of responsibility from one man to another, but rather a sacred ritual that has been performed countless times over the centuries, a tradition as old as the castle walls themselves. The day guard, whose name is Edmund, has stood at his post since before dawn, his face now weathered by wind and sun, his eyes tired from 12 hours of constant vigilance. He slowly descends the narrow spiral staircase of the watchtower, each step careful and measured, for exhaustion makes men clumsy, and these stone stairs are treacherous. His boots echo against the worn steps, each one polished smooth by thousands of footsteps before his, creating a hollow sound that reverberates up and down the tower shaft. Behind him, ascending with careful deliberation, comes his replacement. This is William, a man of 30 winters, a veteran of border skirmishes and one siege, his body marked with scars that tell stories of battles survived. He will stand watch through the long hours of darkness until dawn breaks once more over the eastern horizon. William knows what awaits him. The cold that seeps into your bones, the struggle to stay alert when every fiber of your being screams for sleep, the weight of knowing that lives depend upon your vigilance. The handover takes place on the tower platform, a circular space no more than 15 feet across, surrounded by ancient crenellations that have witnessed wars, sieges, and peaceful times alike. These stone walls, 3 feet thick, are pockmarked with the scars of old battles, places where siege engines hurled stones that chipped and cracked the masonry, places where arrows struck and left their marks. Edmund points to each direction in turn, describing what he has observed throughout the long day. To the north, a merchant caravan passed by mid-morning, heading toward the market town 3 days' journey away. Edmund counted 6 wagons, pulled by oxen, laden with bales and sacks of grain. The merchants seemed in good spirits, laughing and singing as they traveled, suggesting the roads ahead are safe and they fear no ambush. He also noted that they had hired guards, for men with spears walking alongside the wagons, which is normal for valuable cargo, but still worth noting. To the south, farmers work their fields throughout the day, bringing in the last of the autumn harvest before winter's grip makes the land hard and unyielding. Edmund watched them cutting wheat with their scythes, binding sheaves, loading carts. Their work was unhurried and methodical, with no signs of panic or unusual activity that might suggest approaching danger. He counted approximately 20 workers in the fields, men, women, and older children all laboring together as families do during harvest time. As evening approached, they began their journey back to the village, their carts full. Their days were complete. To the east, the great forest stands dark and impenetrable, a massive expanse of ancient oaks, beeches, and pines that stretches for miles. This forest is home to deer and wild boar, to wolves and bears, and occasionally to bandits who use its depths as a refuge from justice. The day guard reports seeing nothing unusual in that direction throughout his watch, though he admits the forest always makes him uneasy, as so much could be hidden within its depths, concealed by the dense canopy and thick undergrowth. Even an army could hide in there, waiting for nightfall before emerging to attack. To the west, the river winds through the valley like a silver ribbon, its waters reflecting the dying light of day. Edmund observed fishermen throughout the afternoon, casting their nets from small boats, pulling in their catches. The fishing appeared good, which suggests the river is healthy and unpolluted, another sign that all is normal in the surrounding countryside. As evening approached, he watched the fishermen beach their boats and begin cleaning their catch on the riverbank, their families gathering to help with the work. William listens intently to every word, his eyes following Edmund's pointing finger, building a mental picture of the day's events and the current state of the surrounding territory. He knows that his predecessor's observations might prove crucial in the hours ahead. A seemingly innocent detail noted during daylight could take on sinister significance under the cover of darkness. Then Edmund mentions something else, something that makes William's attention sharpen, and his hand unconsciously move toward the sword at his belt. Earlier in the afternoon, Edmund saw smoke rising from the abandoned watchtower that stands 5 miles to the northeast. This tower was once part of the defensive network, but it was damaged in a fire 3 years ago during a particularly severe lightning storm, and it has stood empty and neglected ever since. There is no reason for smoke to be coming from that ruin. No legitimate reason, at least. It could be travelers seeking shelter, or it could be something more sinister. Scouts, perhaps, observing the castle and its defenses. Edmund also noticed unusual bird activity near the forest edge around midday. A large flock of crows suddenly took flight, scattering into the sky in a dark, chaotic cloud, their harsh cries audible even at this distance. Something had disturbed them, something significant enough to panic an entire flock. It could have been a predator, a fox, or a wildcat hunting near their nesting area. But it could also have been men moving to the forest, men trying to stay hidden. These observations, carefully cataloged and remembered, become part of William's mental map of potential threats and areas requiring extra attention throughout the coming hours of darkness. As the final rays of sunlight paint the sky in brilliant shades of orange, pink, and deep purple, gradually giving way to the deep blue of approaching night, Edmund lifts the great horn from its iron hook on the tower wall and hands it to William with both hands, as tradition demands. This instrument is far more than a simple tool. It is a sacred trust, a symbol of the responsibility that now passes to the night watch. The horn was carved from the horn of an enormous aurochs, a massive species of wild cattle that once roamed these lands in vast herds, but has not been seen in living memory, surviving now only in old songs and stories. This particular horn has hung in this tower for over 80 years, passed from guard to guard, generation after generation, present at celebrations and disasters alike. The surface is smooth and cool to the touch, polished by decades of handling, decorated with intricate carvings that show scenes of ancient battles and victories. When blown with sufficient force and proper technique, its deep, resonant note can be heard for miles in every direction, cutting through wind and weather, penetrating walls and closed shutters, reaching the ears of every soul within the castle and for a great distance beyond. The sound summons help from neighboring castles and villages, warns of approaching danger, or signals the arrival of important visitors or royal messengers. William accepts the horn with both hands, feeling its considerable weight, perhaps 15 pounds of solid horn, and the bronze fittings that reinforce its narrow end. He knows the terrible responsibility this object represents. The decision of when and whether to sound this horn might mean the difference between the castle's safety and its destruction, between life and death for everyone sleeping in the buildings below. Sound it too readily for insufficient cause, and he wastes precious resources, angers the superiors who will be roused from sleep for no good reason, and damages his own reputation for judgment and reliability. Such a mistake could cost him his position, reduce his pay, or even result in punishment. Fail to sound it when genuine danger threatens, when enemies approach or fires break out, or other disasters loom, and people might die, the castle might fall, and he would bear that guilt for the rest of his life, assuming he survived the catastrophe, to feel guilt at all. Many a guard has been haunted by the memory of a horn not blown, of a warning not given in time. Next comes a handover of the watch schedule, a piece of parchment covered in neat writing that details the positions of every other guard currently on duty throughout the castle's defensive perimeter. The document shows not just where each man is stationed, but also the precise timing of their scheduled rounds, the exact routes they patrol, and the specific signals they use to communicate with each other and with the tower watch. The castle is never defended by a single guard alone, standing isolated and vulnerable, but rather by a carefully coordinated network of watchmen, each covering a specific sector of the defenses, each aware of the other's positions and responsibilities, each ready to support the others if danger threatens. There are guards stationed on the eastern wall, walking the ramparts between the torches that burn in their iron brackets, their footsteps regular and predictable, providing both security and the comfort of human presence in the darkness. There are 2 sentries at the main gate, standing in the small guardhouse built into the wall there, ready to challenge any who approach after dark and to bar entry to those without proper authorization or acceptable explanations for their nighttime travel. There are men in the western tower, the southern tower, each with their own assigned sectors to watch. There are guards in the courtyard, patrolling among the buildings, checking doors and windows, ensuring that fires are properly banked and that no threats emerge from within. And there are men-at-arms sleeping in the barracks, ready to be roused if the alarm sounds, their weapons and armor kept close at hand, so they can respond within minutes to any crisis. If one guard should fail in his duty, whether through falling asleep, being overcome by illness, or being killed, or incapacitated by an enemy, the system is designed so that others will notice his absence and respond accordingly. This redundancy, this overlapping coverage, has saved many castles from disaster. William studies the parchment carefully, noting the position of each guard, mentally calculating the timing of their rounds, so he will know when to expect their signal lights or their calls. Edmund also hands over a small leather pouch containing the materials William will need for signaling. Inside are strips of cloth soaked in oil that can be lit and waved to send simple messages to distant watchtowers or to patrols below. There is also a striker and flint for lighting these signals quickly, and a small mirror that can be used during daylight hours to flash messages using reflected sunlight. The brazier, a large iron basket mounted on a sturdy tripod, already contains glowing coals from the fire that has burned here throughout the day, providing warmth to Edmund during his long watch. The coals glow red and orange in the gathering darkness, their heat radiating outward, and occasional small flames dance across the surface when the wind blows just right. William will need to maintain this fire throughout his watch, feeding it carefully with wood and coal to provide both warmth and light. However, he must balance the comfort and safety of the fire against its tactical disadvantage. The flames destroy night vision, the bright light causing his pupils to contract, making it difficult or impossible to see into the darkness beyond the tower's immediate vicinity. A skilled guard learns to position himself carefully, to warm himself periodically by standing close to the brazier, but then to move away and allow his eyes to readjust to the darkness, preserving his ability to detect movement in the shadows that surround the castle. It is a constant dance between comfort and duty, between the body's need for warmth and the mind's need for vigilance. Edmund also points out the signal lantern, a specially designed lamp with adjustable shutters that can be opened and closed to send coded messages to other watchtowers and to patrols moving through the castle ground below. The lantern is constructed of brass and thick glass, designed to protect the flame from wind while still allowing the light to shine out. The shutters are operated by a simple lever mechanism that allows rapid opening and closing, creating patterns of light that convey specific meanings. 3 quick flashes, executed by opening and closing the shutters in rapid succession, mean all is well. The standard signal given every hour to confirm that the guard remains alert and that no threats have been detected. A single long exposure followed by 2 short ones indicates suspicious activity that requires attention but not immediate alarm. Perhaps an unidentified person approaching along the road, or unusual noises from the forest, things that warrant investigation but do not constitute imminent danger. A continuous signal, the shutters held open while the lantern is waved back and forth, means imminent danger and calls all available forces to arms, bringing soldiers running from the barracks with weapons drawn and armor hastily donned. These codes, simple yet effective, refined over years of use, allow silent communication across distances where shouting would not only fail to carry, but would also alert potential enemies to the defender's awareness and state of preparation. William checks the lantern carefully, ensuring that it is filled with oil, that the wick is trimmed properly, and that the shutters operate smoothly without sticking or squeaking. A malfunction in this device at a critical moment could prove disastrous. Finally, Edmund hands over a small wooden whistle that hangs on a leather cord. This whistle, he explains, is for summoning the corporal of the guard who sleeps in a room at the base of this very tower. If William needs to report something, to request additional men for investigation of a suspicious occurrence, or if he requires relief due to illness or injury, he can blow this whistle and the corporal will come. However, Edmund warns, the corporal is not a patient man and does not appreciate being woken without good cause. Use the whistle only when truly necessary, not for trivial matters or mere loneliness. William nods his understanding and hangs the whistle around his neck, tucking it inside his tunic where it will be protected from the wind and easily accessible if needed. With the handover complete, Edmund gathers his personal belongings, a small sack containing his water flask, now empty, and the remains of the food his wife packed for him before dawn, just some bread crusts and an apple core. He looks relieved to be ending his shift, eager to descend to the barracks where he can remove his boots, warm his feet by the fire, and perhaps eat a hot meal before collapsing into sleep. He bids William good luck, claps him on the shoulder in comradeship, and then begins his descent down the spiral stairs. His footsteps echo in the stone shaft, growing fainter and fainter until finally William hears the distant sound of the tower door opening and closing. And then there is silence. He is alone now, alone with the gathering night, and the awesome responsibility of keeping watch over all those who sleep below, trusting in his vigilance. William stands still for a moment, adjusting to the solitude. The transition from the busy activity of daylight to the profound isolation of the midnight watch is always jarring, no matter how many times one experiences it. During the day, the castle is alive with activity, voices calling out. Children play in the courtyard, servants hurrying about their tasks, soldiers drilling, blacksmiths hammering, carpenters sawing, the whole complex humming with life and purpose. But now, as darkness settles over the land, all that activity gradually winds down and ceases. The sounds of the castle below diminish steadily as people retire to their quarters for the night. The clanging from a blacksmith's forge, which has rung out steadily since dawn, finally falls silent as the smith banks his fire and heads home to his family. The voices of children at play, which earlier filled the air with laughter and shouts, fade away as mothers call them inside for supper and bed. Even the dogs, usually so vocal and alert, barking at every stranger and unusual sound, seem to sense the approaching night and quiet their noise, settling into their spots near doors and gates where they will sleep lightly, ready to raise alarm if needed. Soon, the only sound that reached William's ears are the wind moving through the battlements with a low moaning sound, and the occasional crackle from the brazier as a coal shifts position, or a piece of wood catches flame and burns more vigorously for a moment before settling back to steady combustion. The night guard begins his watch by performing a complete circuit of the tower platform, walking slowly around the perimeter, checking each direction methodically and carefully. This is not mere routine or habit, but a systematic evaluation of the tactical situation, a professional assessment of threats and defensive advantages. From this elevated position, standing more than 60 feet above the ground, he can see for miles in every direction when visibility is good, and his trained eye, educated by years of experience in the teaching of veteran soldiers, notes every detail of the landscape that surrounds the castle. He knows this terrain intimately, more intimately perhaps than he knows his own village of birth, having studied it during countless watches, in all seasons and all weather conditions, in blazing summer heat and winter snowstorms, in spring rains and autumn mists. He knows where the roads run, both the main highways and the smaller paths that farmers use. He knows where streams cross the fields, where they run deep enough to pose obstacles, and where they can be forded easily. He knows where rocky outcroppings provide cover for anyone approaching with hostile intent, where stands of trees could conceal men or horses, where the ground is soft and boggy, making rapid movement difficult, where hills and valleys create dead ground invisible from the castle. This knowledge is his arsenal, his advantage over any enemy who might approach, but they must cross terrain he understands while he watches from a position of height and safety. To the north, the mountains rise like jagged teeth against the darkening sky, their peaks still catching the last light of the sun long after the valleys below have been swallowed by shadow. These mountains, ancient beyond measure, worn by countless ages of wind and rain and ice, form a natural barrier between this kingdom and the lands beyond. The peaks rise to heights where snow persists even in summer, where the air is thin and cold, where only the hardiest travelers dare to venture. These mountains make attack from that direction difficult but not impossible, and William has heard stories, passed down from older guard and veterans, of armies crossing those peaks in the depths of winter, suffering terrible losses to cold and avalanche, and the sheer exhaustion of climbing through deep snow at high altitude, but emerging on the other side to catch defenders completely by surprise, appearing where no attack was expected. So even though an attack from the north is unlikely at this time of year, with winter approaching and the passes already becoming treacherous, he does not discount the possibility entirely. His gaze sweeps methodically across the mountain slopes, looking for any sign of campfires that would indicate the presence of large groups of men, or the glint of metal that might betray the movement of an armed force. He sees nothing, only the mountains themselves, eternal and indifferent to the small concerns of men and their wars. To the south, the main road stretches away into darkness, a pale ribbon visible even in the fading light, because the traffic of many years has worn away the grass and packed the earth hard. This road connects the castle to a network of other fortifications, market towns, and ultimately, after many days of travel, to the capital city itself where the king holds court. This road is the lifeblood of the region, the artery along which flows trade and communication, the path by which supplies reach the castle, and news travels from the wider world. During the day, Edmund counted at least 15 separate groups using this road, merchants with their wagons, farmers heading to market, a small group of monks traveling to a monastery, a noble and his retinue passing through, soldiers on patrol, and various individual travelers whose business was their own. But now the road lies empty and silent, a gray line stretching into the gathering darkness. An empty road at night is normal, even expected, as few travelers are foolish enough to journey after dark when bandits lurk in shadows and wild animals hunt in the darkness. The sensible traveler finds an inn or accepts hospitality at a village before sunset, spending the night in safety and warmth before continuing his journey with the dawn. But an empty road can also be suspicious. William thinks about the implications, turning the observation over in his mind like a puzzle to be solved. If refugees were fleeing an approaching army, they would travel day and night, driven by fear, heedless of darkness and danger, and the road would be crowded with desperate people carrying whatever possessions they could salvage. The absence of such refugees might mean that no threat exists anywhere in the region, that all is peaceful and secure. Or it might mean that any threat is still too distant to have generated panic and flight, that an enemy army is still days away from the territory these people call home. William makes a mental note to watch the road carefully throughout the night, to notice if any groups do pass by after dark, which would suggest unusual circumstances requiring explanation. To the east, the approach is dominated by the Great Forest, a massive expanse of ancient woodland that stretches for more than 20 miles. The forest is old, older than the castle, older than the kingdom itself perhaps, a remnant of the vast forest that once covered all these lands before men came with their axes and plows and cleared the trees to make room for fields and pastures and villages. What remains is still impressive, a dense tangle of oaks and beeches and pines, their canopies so thick that even at midday the forest floor exists in perpetual twilight. This forest is home to deer and wild boar, to foxes and badgers, to wolves and occasionally to bears that descend from the mountains in search of food. It is also home, sometimes, to bandits and outlaws, men who have fled justice or deserted from armies, men who live by robbery and violence, preying on travelers and raiding isolated farmsteads. The forest provides them with shelter and concealment, making it nearly impossible for authorities to root them out. Patrols venture into the forest occasionally, searching for bandit camps, but the outlaws simply melt away into the depths, waiting for soldiers to leave before returning to their hidden refuges. Edmund saw nothing unusual in the forest during his watch, but that means little, for the forest could hide an entire army within its depths, thousands of men concealed beneath the canopy, invisible from above, their campfires hidden by the trees. William stares at the dark tree line, now barely visible as a black mass against a slightly lighter sky. He thinks about the crow flock that Edmund observed, the birds scattering in panic from something in the forest. It might have been an animal, a fox hunting too close to their nesting area, or a deer crashing through the undergrowth, startled by some sound or scent. But it might have been men, soldiers, or scouts moving through the forest, trying to approach the castle undetected, disturbing the birds despite their attempts at stealth. William makes another mental note to pay particular attention to the forest edge throughout the night, to watch for any movement or any lights that might appear among the trees. To the west, the river winds through the valley like a silver ribbon, its waters still faintly visible in the dying light, reflecting the last colors of sunset. The river is wide and deep here, fed by streams flowing down from the mountains to the north, and it provides multiple benefits to the castle and the surrounding settlements. It is a source of fresh water, of course, though the castle has its own wells for security, ensuring that a siege cannot cut off the water supply. It is also a source of food, with fish in abundance during most of the year. Edmund observed fishermen throughout the afternoon, hardy men in small wooden boats, casting their nets with practiced skill, pulling in catches of pike and perch and carp. The fishing appeared good, their nets coming up heavy with struggling fish, which suggests the river is healthy and unpolluted, not fouled by disease or the waste of upstream settlements. This is another sign that all is normal in the surrounding countryside, that no army has passed through to muddy the waters or poison the fish, as sometimes happens during wartime. As evening approached, Edmund watched the fishermen beach their boats and begin the work of cleaning their catch on the riverbank, their families gathering to help with the task, women and children coming down from the nearby village with baskets to carry the fish home where they would be cooked for supper or preserved with salt for the winter months ahead. The river also serves as a boundary and a barrier, one more obstacle that an attacking enemy would need to cross. The bridges are few and can be destroyed or heavily defended, forcing attackers to find fords or build their own bridges, operations that take time and expose them to defensive fire. The river, like the mountains to the north, is part of the castle's natural defenses, part of the reason this location was chosen for fortification generations ago. William completes his circuit of the tower platform and returns to the northern side, the direction from which the most dangerous threats historically have come. He stands at the parapet, his hands resting on the cold stone of the crenellations, and looks out over the darkening landscape. The sun has now fully set, the last colors fading from the sky, replaced by the deep blue of twilight. Stars are beginning to appear overhead. First a few of the brightest, then more and more as his eyes adjust and as the sky grows darker. He recognizes the constellations, for astronomy is part of guard's training. The North Star, constant and unwavering, shows him true north. Other constellations mark the passage of time, as they will slowly across the sky throughout the night. By observing their positions, he can estimate the hour even without a clock or hourglass. The brightest stars appear first, and he mentally names them Sirius, Arcturus, Vega, names taught to him by an old guard during his first year of service. The air is growing colder now that the sun has set, the warmth of the day dissipating rapidly. William pulls his woolen cloak more tightly around his shoulders and ties it securely. He is dressed for a long, cold night, wearing multiple layers of wool and leather. Under his cloak, he wears a padded gambeson, a quilted tunic that provides both warmth and some protection against weapons. Over that, he wears a leather jerkin reinforced with metal studs. His legs are covered by thick wool hose and leather boots that come up to his knees. On his head, he wears a wool cap that covers his ears. His hands are protected by leather gloves, though he knows he will need to remove them periodically to maintain dexterity, for cold-numbed fingers might fumble at a critical moment. Despite all this clothing, he knows that before the night is over he will be cold, deeply cold, the kind of cold that settles into your bones and makes your whole body ache. He can already feel the chill beginning to penetrate his layers, and the night has barely begun. He moves to the brazier and holds his hands over the flames, feeling the blessed warmth radiating upward. The fire has burned down somewhat since Edmund left, and William adds 2 pieces of wood from the stack, kept in a dry corner of the platform. The wood catches quickly, flames licking up the sides of the logs, and soon the fire is burning more vigorously. The heat feels wonderful, almost painfully good against his cold hands, and he allows himself a moment to simply enjoy the sensation. But only a moment, for he knows that staring into the flames will ruin his night vision. Already he can feel his pupils contracting in response to the bright light, and when he looks away toward the dark landscape, he finds he can see almost nothing. The world beyond the circle of firelight is just a black void. He turns his back to the fire and stands still, waiting patiently for his eyes to readjust to the darkness. It takes several minutes, but gradually his night vision returns, details emerging from the blackness. He can see the pale line of the road again, the darker mass of the forest, the faint glimmer of the river. This will be his routine throughout the night, warming himself briefly by the fire every hour or so, then moving away and waiting for his vision to recover, a constant balance between physical comfort and tactical effectiveness. The first hour of his watch passes slowly, as first hours always do. Time seems to move differently at night, minutes stretching out endlessly, each one feeling like 10. William fights against the boredom and the growing cold by keeping himself active. He walks circuits of the platform, never standing still for long, keeping his blood flowing and his muscles loose. He pauses at each side to scan the landscape carefully, his eyes moving systematically from close to far, from left to right, looking for anything unusual or out of place. He sees nothing alarming, just a normal nighttime landscape, peaceful and still. A bat flutters past the tower, its erratic flight barely visible against the stars. An owl calls from somewhere in the darkness, its hollow hooting carrying across the silent land. These are normal sounds, comforting in their familiarity. Signs that the natural world is going about its business undisturbed by human threats. William knows that animals are often the first to sense danger. When predators approach, prey animals fall silent, freezing in place or fleeing to safety. When human intruders enter the forest, birds stop singing and small mammals hide in their burrows. The presence of normal animal activity, bats hunting insects, owls calling to establish territory or attract mates, is a good sign that nothing unusual is happening in the immediate vicinity. But he also knows this could change in an instant, that danger could be approaching even now from beyond the range of his vision or hearing. Eternal vigilance, that is the watchword of his profession, never assuming that safety will continue, always ready for the moment when everything changes. Around in the first hour, William uses the signal lantern to flash the all is well code to the other towers and to the guards below. 3 quick flashes, executed smoothly, and within moments he sees answering flashes from the eastern tower and the southern tower, confirming that those guards are also alert and that they have seen nothing requiring attention. This exchange of signals happens every hour throughout the night, a way of ensuring that all guards remain awake and vigilant. For a guard who has fallen asleep cannot send signals, and his silence would quickly be noticed and investigated. The system has worked well for many years, and William has heard of several occasions when it revealed that a guard had indeed fallen asleep, or had become ill, or had even been killed by an infiltrator, allowing rapid response before the situation could worsen. He returns to his observation, his eyes scanning the darkness with renewed focus. The second hour begins, and with it comes a subtle change in the night. The temperature continues to drop, and now William can see his breath misting in the air before him. Small clouds of vapor appearing with each exhalation, visible for a moment in the firelight before dissipating. The stars have grown brighter and more numerous, thousands of them now visible, a vast glittering canopy overhead. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of light, and William pauses for a moment to appreciate its beauty. He is not an educated man, cannot read or write beyond a few simple words, but he has learned much from his years of night watches. He knows the stars and their movements, can predict weather from the appearance of sky and the behavior of animals, understand the rhythms of nature in a way that scholars with their books never will. This knowledge, earned through experience and observation, makes him valuable, makes him good at his job. The castle below has fallen completely silent now. Every candle has been extinguished, every conversation ended, every door closed and barred for the night. Even the dogs have stopped their occasional barking and settled into sleep. William is now the only conscious soul in this small world, the sole guardian standing between the sleeping castle and whatever dangers the night might hold. The weight of this responsibility settles on his shoulders like a physical burden, and he accepts it as he has accepted it hundreds of times before. This is his duty, his purpose, the reason he draws pay and is given a place to sleep and food to eat. He will not fail in this duty, will not allow harm to come to those who trust in his protection. The night deepens, and William continues his watch. He thinks about his family, his wife sleeping in their small cottage within the castle walls, his 2 children curled together in their bed, warm under their blankets, safe because he stands here in the cold and dark. He thinks about all the other families, the servants and soldiers, the craftsmen and their wives, the lord and his household, all sleeping peacefully because men like him keep watch. It is a strange thing to ponder, how the safety of so many depends on the vigilance of so few, how civilization itself rests on this foundation of watchful guardians. Without guards, without soldiers willing to stand in the darkness and face whatever comes, there would be no safety, no peace, no castles or towns or kingdoms. There would only be chaos, the strong preying on the weak, everyone living in constant fear. Around the middle of the second hour, William hears a sound that makes him freeze in place. All his senses suddenly alert. It is faint, very faint, but his ears are trained to catch such sounds. It is the sound of metal on metal, a small clink or scrape, barely audible over the whisper of the wind. The sound came from the east, from the direction of the forest. He stares intently in that direction, his hand moving instinctively to the sword at his belt, his other hand reaching for the signal lantern. He stands perfectly still, barely breathing, listening with all his concentration. Seconds pass, feeling like minutes. He hears nothing more, just the wind, and the crackling of the fire behind him. Could he have imagined it? Could it have been something innocent? A piece of equipment on one of the patrols below, or metal fittings on a horse in the stable shifting as the animal moved. But the sound seemed to come from beyond the castle walls, from out in the darkness. His training takes over, pushing aside doubt and speculation. Whether the sound was real or imagined, whether it was innocent or threatening, his duty is clear. He must investigate, must determine the source. He moves to the western side of the tower and uses the signal lantern to send the code for suspicious activity, one long flash followed by two short ones. Almost immediately, answering signals come from the other towers, acknowledging his message. Within moments, he hears activity from below, the sound of the guard barracks door opening, voices calling quietly, the metallic sounds of weapons being readied. The castle is responding to his warning. Men are waking and preparing for possible action. William returns to the eastern side and stares into the darkness, his eyes straining to penetrate the shadows near the forest edge. The moon has not yet risen, and without its light, visibility is poor despite the starlight. He can see the basic shapes of the landscape, the pale open ground of the cleared area around the castle, the dark mass of the forest beyond. But details are impossible to discern at this distance. He watches for several more minutes, looking for any sign of movement, any glint of metal or armor, any shape that does not belong. He sees nothing, but he cannot shake the feeling that something is out there, that the sound he heard was real and significant. Down in the courtyard, he can hear the corporal organizing a patrol, voices speaking in low tones, the sound of the small postern gate being unbarred. A group of soldiers will go out to investigate, moving carefully to the clear ground toward the forest edge, ready for combat if enemies are discovered. William watches their progress, though they are hard to see in the darkness. He sees a faint movement of shapes leaving the castle, spreading out in a skirmish line as they advance. They are professionals, these men, trained and experienced, and they move with careful coordination. Each man covers his fellows, weapons ready. They reach the forest edge and pause, and William can imagine them listening intently, looking for any sign of intruders. The minutes stretch out, tense and silent. Then one of the soldiers returns at a run, his movement visible now that William knows where to look. The soldier reaches a postern gate and speaks with the corporal. Their voice is too low for William to hear the words. After a brief conversation, the corporal looks up at the tower and gives a signal. Two quick waves of his arm, the all-clear sign. The patrol has found nothing, no enemies, no tracks, no evidence of anyone approaching the castle. The soldiers return inside. The postern gate is barred again, and gradually the castle settles back into watchful quiet. William feels both relief and uncertainty. Relief that no immediate danger threatens, uncertainty about the sound he heard. Was it real? Did he imagine it? Or was there someone out there who managed to slip away before the patrol arrived? He will never know for certain, and this ambiguity is frustrating. But such is often the nature of night guard duty. Many alarms turn out to be false, triggered by animals or by sounds misinterpreted in the darkness, or by the guard's own tired mind playing tricks. But every alarm must be treated as real until proven otherwise, for the one time a guard ignores his instincts might be the one time when the threat is genuine. William returns to his routine, walking his circuits, warming himself briefly at the fire, scanning the landscape in all directions. The third hour begins, and with it comes the hardest part of the night. This is when fatigue really begins to set in, when the body's natural rhythms are crying out for sleep, when keeping one's eyes open becomes a battle of will. William has his methods for staying awake, techniques learned during his years of service. He keeps moving, never allowing himself to stand still for more than a minute or two, for stillness invites sleep. He pinches himself periodically, sharp little pains that jolt him back to full alertness. He recites prayers and old songs in his mind, anything to keep his thoughts active and engaged. He thinks about consequences, about what would happen if he fell asleep, about the people who depend on him. The fear of failure, of letting others down, is a powerful motivator. He also uses the cold as a tool as much as he hates it. The biting chill makes sleep difficult, keeps the body in a state of mild stress that prevents deep relaxation. When he feels drowsiness creeping over him, he removes his gloves and lets his hands grow cold, the discomfort driving away the urge to sleep. Around the middle of the third hour, something changes in the sky. Clouds have been building from the west, and now they begin to cover the stars, advancing like a dark army across the heavens. Within minutes, half the sky is obscured, and the darkness deepens noticeably. William frowns, for clouds make his job harder. They reduce visibility even further, and they often bring weather, rain or snow that will make the night even more miserable. He adds more wood to the fire, building it up in anticipation of worse conditions ahead. The temperature has dropped further, and he estimates it is now well below freezing. His breath comes in thick clouds, and when he touches a stone parapet, it is so cold that the chill penetrates immediately through his glove. Ice is beginning to form on the stones, a thin glaze that makes footing treacherous. He must be careful now not to slip, for a fall from this height would mean death or crippling injury. The clouds continue to advance, and soon the entire sky is covered, the stars and moon completely hidden. The darkness is now nearly absolute, broken only by the glow of his fire and the faint lights from the other guard towers visible in the distance. Then, as if the night could not become more challenging, snow begins to fall. At first just a few flakes, drifting down gently, barely visible against the darkness. But within minutes the snowfall increases, thousands of flakes swirling the wind, creating a white curtain between William and the world beyond the tower. He pulls his cloak tighter and lowers his head against the wind, which has picked up and now drives the snow at an angle. The snow is both a curse and a blessing. It makes visibility almost nil, reduces his ability to see approaching threats, muffles sounds, and makes the cold even more intense. But it also reveals tracks, and by morning, any approach to the castle will be clearly visible in the fresh accumulation, making it impossible for enemies to approach without leaving evidence. The brazier hisses and steams as snowflakes land in the flames, melting instantly with small sounds like whispered curses. William moves closer to the fire, needing its warmth more than ever now. He can no longer see anything beyond 20 or 30 feet. The world has shrunk to just this tower platform and the immediate area around it, everything else hidden behind a veil of falling snow. He continues his watch as best he can, peering into the whiteness, seeing nothing but knowing he must try. His face is wet with melted snow, his beard beginning to accumulate ice. His hands, even in their gloves, are growing numb, and he knows he must be careful now, must guard against frostbite. He has seen men lose fingers and toes to the cold, good soldiers rendered less effective because they did not take sufficient care during winter watches. He removes his gloves and holds his hands directly over the fire, as close as he can bear, feeling the heat penetrate his skin. The sensation is painful. A burning tingle as blood rushes back into cold-restricted capillaries. But it is necessary. He flexes his fingers repeatedly, making fists and opening them, ensuring that he maintains full function. After a minute of this, he puts the gloves back on and returns to his observation, such as it is. The snow continues to fall steadily, and now it is beginning to accumulate on the tower platform, covering the stones with a thin white layer. William stamps his feet regularly, both to keep the blood flowing in his legs and prevent snow from building up under his boots, which could make him slip. The fourth hour passes in this white isolation, William alone in his small circle of firelight, cut off from the rest of the world by the falling snow and the darkness. He has never felt more alone, more aware of his vulnerability. If enemies were approaching now, he would not see them until they were at the castle walls, and by then it might be too late. But he also knows that no one would attack in these conditions, that any enemy forces would be hunkered down somewhere, seeking shelter from the storm, as miserable as he is. Wars pause for weather like this, for armies cannot move through snow this heavy, cannot see to fight, cannot keep their bowstrings dry or their men from freezing. He takes comfort in this knowledge, though he does not relax his vigilance entirely. Around the beginning of the fifth hour, the snow begins to ease somewhat. The heavy curtain thins, becomes lighter, and visibility improves slightly. William can now see perhaps 50 feet into the darkness, though that is still not far. The wind also drops, no longer driving the snow sideways, but allowing it to fall more gently, almost peacefully. The change is welcome, and William takes advantage of the improved conditions to send his hourly signal. 3 quick flashes that are answered promptly by the other towers. All is well as can be in such conditions at least. The watch continues. William maintains his routine, walking his circuits despite the snow underfoot, warming himself to fire, observing as best he can given the conditions. His mind has entered a strange state, a kind of focused numbness where thought becomes simple and direct, stripped of complexity. He is cold, he is tired, he has a job to do, and he does it. There is nothing else, no past or future, only this eternal present moment of snow and darkness and duty. Somewhere around the middle of the fifth hour, the snow stops entirely. The clouds part slightly, and suddenly stars are visible again, bright points of light in gaps between the dark masses of cloud. The landscape emerges from the whiteness, now covered in a blanket of snow that transforms everything, softening harsh edges, covering the familiar world in a layer of purity. In the starlight filtering to the clouds, the snow seems to glow faintly, creating a strange twilight visibility that is better than the pitch darkness before the snow, but still far from good. William can now see the clear ground around the castle, can see the forest edge, can see the road, all rendered in shades of white and gray and black. He studies his transformed landscape carefully, looking for anything unusual, any tracks or disturbances in the fresh snow. He sees nothing suspicious, just the pristine snow, unmarked except where wind has created small drifts against walls and trees. No tracks approach the castle, no signs of anyone moving through the night. Whatever threat he sensed earlier, if it was real at all, did not materialize into actual danger. The castle remained safe, its inhabitants sleeping peacefully, unaware of the guard's vigilance and the harsh conditions he has endured on their behalf. The sixth hour arrives, bringing with it the first subtle hint that the night will not last forever. It is not yet dawn, nothing so definite as that, but the quality of the darkness begins to change. The blackness becomes fractionally less absolute, as if diluted by some unseen light source still far below the horizon. To an untrained eye, the change would be invisible, but William knows night intimately, and he perceives a shift. Dawn is coming, still hours away, but no longer infinitely distant. The knowledge brings a surge of relief so powerful it is almost overwhelming. He has made it through the worst, through the coldest, darkest hours. Now it is just a matter of endurance, of lasting until his relief arrives. The stars begin to fade as the sky continues its slow brightening. The clouds are breaking up, moving eastward, revealing more and more the heavens. The temperature, having reached its lowest point before dawn, begins to stabilize, no longer dropping but not yet rising. William's body aches from the cold and from standing for so long. His legs are stiff, his back sore, his feet numb despite his efforts to keep them moving. His face feels frozen, skin tight and painful. But he ignores these discomforts, pushes them to the back of his mind, focuses on his duty. The seventh hour passes slowly, every minute feeling endless now that the end is in sight. This is a dangerous time, William knows, when guards often let their attention slip, assuming that they have made it through and can relax. But he has been trained better than that, has internalized a discipline that separates professional soldiers from amateurs. He maintains his watch, his circuits of the platform, his systematic scanning of the landscape. The sky continues to brighten, moving through shades of deep blue toward the gray that precedes true dawn. Details emerge in the darkness, the landscape revealing itself feature by feature. The snow makes everything brighter, reflecting what little light exists, and William finds he can see quite well now despite the sun still being below the horizon. He can see the individual trees at the forest edge, can see the road clearly for miles, can see the river glinting between its banks. Everything is peaceful, beautiful even in its frozen stillness. Around the middle of the eighth hour, the eastern horizon begins to glow with the first colors of dawn. It starts as a pale yellow, barely distinguishable from the gray, but it grows and intensifies, spreading along the horizon like fire. Then pink appears and orange, and the clouds of the east catch these colors and reflect them, creating a spectacular display. William pauses in his rounds to watch the sunrise, allowing himself this moment of appreciation. He has seen hundreds of sunrises from this tower, but each one is unique, each one beautiful, and each one represents survival. Another night successfully completed. The colors intensify, becoming almost painfully bright after so many hours of darkness. The sun itself appears, first as a sliver of brilliant light, then more and more the disk rising above the horizon. The world transforms in this light. The snow blazing white, the shadows long and blue, every detail crisp and clear. William can now see for miles in every direction, can see that no enemies lurk nearby, that all is indeed well. The castle below begins to wake. Smoke rises from chimneys as servants rebuild fires for the day's cooking. Doors open and people emerge, their voices carrying in the still cold air. The dogs begin to bark, announcing their presence and territory. Life returns to the castle, the normal rhythms of day replacing the suspended existence of night. William hears footsteps on the stairs below, the sound of his relief approaching. The footsteps echo in the tower shaft, growing louder, and then Edmund appears, the same man who William relieved 12 hours ago, now rested and ready for another day's shift. They exchange brief greetings, and William begins a handover process, telling Edmund everything he observed during the night. He mentions a suspicious sound in the 4th hour and the patrol that found nothing. He describes a snowstorm and the current conditions. He reports that all signals were exchanged properly throughout the night, and that all other guard posts remained alert and responsive. Edmund listens carefully, asks a few questions, and nods his understanding. He takes the horn, the lantern, the whistle, all the tools and symbols of the watch. Then, with a final glance around the platform, William begins his descent. Each step down the spiral staircase is a small victory, each one bringing him closer to warmth and rest and relief from duty. His legs are so stiff that descending is actually painful, his knees protesting after so many hours of standing and walking on the cold stone. He uses the wall for support, his gloved hand trailing along the stones, feeling the texture worn smooth by countless other hands before his. The staircase seems longer than he remembers, the spiral going down and down, but finally he reaches the bottom and emerges into the courtyard. The morning air is still cold, but after the exposed heights of the tower, even the courtyard feels relatively sheltered and warm. The sun has now fully risen, and its light, though providing little warmth yet, is beautiful and welcome after the long darkness. William crosses the courtyard, his boots crunching in the snow, heading toward the barracks where he can finally rest. Other guards who work the night shift are also making their way to the barracks, men coming in from the walls and gates, all with the same exhausted look, the same relief at having completed another night. They exchange nods and brief words, a camaraderie born of shared hardship, but mostly they are too tired for conversation. Each man focused on his own immediate needs. William reaches the barracks, a long stone building with a steeply pitched roof now covered in snow. He pushes open a heavy wooden door and steps inside, grateful for the relative warmth. A fire burns in a large fireplace at one end of the room, tended by the soldier whose duty it is to keep it going throughout the day and night, ensuring that men coming off watch have warmth to return to. The heat from the fire feels glorious, almost overwhelming after so many hours in the freezing air. William makes his way to his sleeping area, just a narrow bed in a row of similar beds, separated by a few feet from his neighbors on either side. Privacy is a luxury that common soldiers do not enjoy, but right now he does not care. He sits on the edge of the bed and begins the process of removing his gear. First the cloak, heavy with accumulated snow that has melted and frozen and melted again. Then the sword belt, the weight of the weapon a relief to set aside, the leather jerkin, the padded gambeson. Each layer removed, revealing another beneath, each removal making him feel lighter. Finally he gets to his boots, and unlacing them is a struggle because his fingers are still cold and clumsy despite the gloves he wore. The laces are stiff, and it takes much longer than it should, but eventually he gets them loose and pulls the boots off. His feet, freed at last, are pale and wrinkled from sweat and pressure. He massages them gently, wincing as sensation returns in painful tingles. He needs to check for frostbite, needs to examine his toes carefully to ensure no permanent damage has occurred. Each toe seems intact, though they are very cold and the skin is reddened. He will keep an eye on them over the next few hours, watch for any signs of blackening or loss of sensation that would indicate serious frostbite requiring medical attention. Satisfied that he has avoided major cold injury, William lies back on the bed, pulling the ruffled blanket over himself. The bed is not comfortable. The straw mattress is lumpy and thin. The blanket is scratchy against the skin, and the room is noisy with other men moving about, talking, snoring. But after standing on a frozen tower for 12 hours, even this humble bed feels like paradise. He closes his eyes, and for a moment his mind continues to race, still alert, still watching for threats. This is the curse of the night watch, the inability to simply turn off the vigilance when the shift ends. His body is exhausted, but his mind is still on guard, still scanning for dangers. Gradually, however, warmth and exhaustion begin to win the battle. His muscles relax, his breathing slows and deepens. His thoughts begin to drift and fragment. He hears the sound of the barracks around him, other guards settling into sleep, the crackle of the fire, voices from outside as the day shift goes about their duties. These sounds, the sounds of normal life continuing, are comforting. They are the sounds of safety, of a castle functioning as it should, of people going about their business without fear, because men like him stand watch in the darkness. His last conscious thought is of the tower, of young Edmund now standing where he stood, looking out over the same landscape but transformed by daylight and snow. The watch continues, as it always has, as it always will, an unbroken chain of vigilance stretching back through years to when a castle was first built and forward into an unknowable future. Day and night, summer and winter, year after year, generation after generation, guards stand on towers and walk on walls, protecting those who cannot protect themselves. It is an ancient duty, older than kingdoms, older than civilization perhaps, this fundamental human need to stand watch while others sleep. As long as there is darkness, there will be those who watch in it. As long as there are threats, there will be guards standing against them. This is a calling, the burden and the honor that William and men like him have accepted. And finally, mercifully, sleep comes. William's breathing becomes slow and regular. His face relaxes, and he slips into the deep, dreamless sleep of utter exhaustion. A round in the barracks continues its activity, but he is beyond awareness now, beyond duty, beyond cold and fatigue. For the next several hours he will rest, his body recovering from the ordeal of the night, preparing itself for the next watch, the next night, the next test of endurance and will. And when he wakes, he will eat and tend his equipment, and perhaps spend time with his family. And then when evening comes again, he will prepare himself to return to the tower, to take up the watch once more, to stand through another long cold night. This is his life, the life of a castle guard, and though it is hard and often thankless, though it brings more discomfort than glory, he does it willingly, for he knows, as all guards know, that the work matters, that the safety of innocent people depends on this vigilance, that civilization itself rests on the foundation of those willing to stand watch in the darkness. The night watch continues, eternal and necessary, and William has played his part in it once more. The castle is safe. The people sleep peacefully. And for now, that is enough.